The room is quiet in a way that feels intentional, like someone has decided that noise would be disrespectful. Outside, the California light is fading, and inside, an 80-year-old man sits still, hands folded, eyes focused on a memory most people think they already understand. For decades, he didn't talk about it. He smiled through interviews, dodged the questions, changed the subject. But now, Tom Selleck finally exhales and says a name he hasn't said out loud in years. Steve McQueen. And with that name, something shifts. Back in the late 1960s, Hollywood was a battlefield of charisma. Steve McQueen wasn't just a star, he was a force. He walked like the world owed him nothing, and he owed the world even less. Directors adjusted their shots when he entered a room. Cameras followed him like he was gravity itself. And somewhere on the edge of that orbit was a young Tom Selleck. Tall, uncertain, still learning how to carry his own presence without apology. They crossed paths more than once, sometimes on studio lots, sometimes at quiet gatherings where the laughter felt forced and the competition was real. McQueen didn't need to say much, he'd look at you, really look at you, and you'd feel like you were being measured. Tom remembers that feeling vividly, the unspoken question hanging in the air. Are you a threat, or are you just passing through? For years, the story was simple. Steve McQueen was the king. Tom Selleck was the next generation who eventually found his lane. End of story. But Tom pauses now, his voice softer, and admits that the truth never sat that cleanly, because admiration and intimidation can exist in the same breath. And sometimes, so can resentment. There was one afternoon Tom never forgot. A soundstage, hot lights, the smell of dust and old wood. McQueen was there, leaning against a wall, sunglasses on indoors, as if daring anyone to question it. Tom walked past younger, broader, already drawing a few curious glances. McQueen didn't smile. He just nodded once. A small gesture, but it landed heavy. Tom says that nod felt like a warning and an invitation at the same time. You're a good kid, but don't forget who's here first. What most people never saw was the cost of that kind of stardom. McQueen carried something restless, something that never fully slept. Tom noticed it in the way Steve laughed too loudly and then went quiet too fast. In the way he pushed limits even when no one was watching. Fame had crowned him, but it had also trapped him. And Tom, watching from just far enough away, wondered if that crown was heavier than it looked. Years passed, roles came and went. Tom found success, then superstardom of his own. The mustache became iconic. The smile became familiar. But whenever Steve McQueen's name came up, Tom would deflect. Not because there was nothing to say, because there was too much. Now, at 80, Tom admits there was a moment that changed everything. News travels fast in Hollywood, but grief travels faster. When word came that Steve McQueen was gone, the world froze for a beat. Tom remembers sitting alone, the television on but muted, watching images of a man who had seemed indestructible. Gone at 50, the rebel without brakes finally stopped. What Tom never said until now is this. He didn't just feel sadness, he felt fear, because in McQueen's rise and fall, Tom saw a mirror of what could happen when you let the image consume the person. He saw how easy it was to become the character everyone wanted, and how hard it was to stay human underneath it. There's a long pause when Tom talks about this. He swallows, looks down, then back up. He says Steve taught him something without ever meaning to. Not through advice, not through mentorship, but through example, through watching someone burn bright and fast, and realizing that survival sometimes means stepping out of the fire. He wonders out loud if Steve knew how much impact he had on the people around him, if he knew that even his silence spoke volumes, if he knew that a single nod on a soundstage could stay with a man for a lifetime, and that question lingers, unanswered. Heavy. Tom doesn't claim regret, but there's something close to it in his voice. A wish that there had been more time, more honesty, less performance. He says they were never friends in the traditional sense, but they were connected by ambition, by pressure, by a system that builds legends and rarely teaches them how to come down safely. As the light outside disappears completely, Tom finishes with a thought that feels less like a conclusion and more like an offering. He says legacies aren't just what we leave behind on screen. They're the quiet lessons we pass on without realizing it. The warnings, the inspirations, the shadows, and the light. And maybe the real mystery isn't what Tom Selleck finally said about Steve McQueen. Maybe it's what we still haven't learned from them. How many stars are burning right now, convinced they're invincible? And how many are watching, quietly taking notes, hoping to survive long enough to tell the truth?